So please don't go by the color of my hair. I have completed almost 35 years in the industry. So let me share with you when did I start. I started my career way back in the year 1989. So therefore I have seen the Harshad Mehta scam at close quarters. Many of you may not know this, that the mutual fund industry has gone through many evolutions. I have been fortunate to see this evolution of the industry because I don't know how many of you know there is an Indian mutual fund that broke the Guinness Book of World Records. Many of you who have been long time in the industry, you have struggled to sell mutual funds. But during the heydays of Harshad Mehta, absolutely. In way back, जब हर्षद मेहता की पीक के समय, there was a fund for which the application form was getting sold for 10 rupees and 20 rupees per piece way back in 1992. The history of that fund is like this, that that point of time, Unit Trust of India brought out a fund called Master Plus. Master Plus was named after another successful fund which was called Master Share. Master Plus in those days I think collected close to about 800 crores. Correct. And this Master Plus was actually brought out as a new fund offer in the month of September, October of 1991. You will be surprised to know that even before the investors got their share certificate, the receipts of Master Plus started trading in the secondary market. People started paying a premium to buy the receipts of Master Plus. And because of that grey market, a lot of interest started picking up. And then, after that, in the month of February 92, UTI launched another fund called Master Gain 92. In that fund, there was only one ad which was placed. If you have missed Master Plus 91, here is the other opportunity. And you will not believe it, I was posted in Calcutta. When I would reach my office at 9 o'clock, already there would be a queue of 500 people in front of the office just to collect the application form. That fund collected 64 lakh applications, broke the Guinness Book of World Record for the highest mobilization by initial public offer. Before that record was held by British Gas. So that was also part of the history of mutual funds. After that, many things changed. Harshad's scam happened, market fell, Master Gain's NAV also fell, so on and so forth. So that is how my first exposure to the industry was. Thereafter, a lot of other changes also happened in the industry because of the SEBI's constitution. SEBI came in after I joined the mutual fund industry. So SEBI's coming also made a lot of changes. Private sector mutual funds started coming. Those days, SBI mutual fund, followed by Canbank mutual fund, and the first popular multinational mutual fund called Morgan Stanley mutual fund. So they started coming and they also contributed their bit to popularizing the concept of mutual fund. But thereafter, sometime around 1994, the markets went through a period of lull. You will find that the popularity of mutual fund then was very strongly correlated to the movement of the stock market. Whenever the stock market would move up, mutual funds would become a popular form of investment. When the market would become flat or move down, the mutual funds would again lose interest. This sort of situation continued till we came to the year 2000. Just as today we are celebrating our landing on the moon, in the year 98, if I recall correctly, we were also celebrating another big event, our nuclear experiment at Pokhran. That was also something which was a success for India. But the flip side of that was that the entire world blacklisted us and they imposed sanctions. And at that point of time, FIIs, started selling left, right and center in India. Which was the institution which was able to stand against them? UTI. UTI was the institution that stood against that selling. And FIIs were selling and we were buying. That selling ultimately got absorbed. And then the dot-com boom started. In that dot-com boom, lot of mutual funds once again made their presence felt. Lot of names started becoming very popular. So some of the fund managers that you today see on television, Samir Arora, Bharat Shah, they all became poster boys of the industry at that phase of the market. Unfortunately, in the past, what has happened is, with the rise in the market, you will find that most of the investor concentration gets into a particular sector. In 92, it was chasing Harshad stocks. In the year 2000, it was chasing only the IT stocks. And obviously, 2000, 2001, the IT stocks came to a crash, and mutual fund industry also followed the same journey. Again, investors moved away from the mutual fund industry. But they say history has a tendency of repeating itself. Okay. So once again, in 2007, another sector started doing well, infrastructure. Every mutual fund in the industry launched infra fund. And the climax of this was the IPO of Reliance Power. Okay, they listed in January of 2008. Along with their listing, they also created the top of the market. Thereafter, you will find history had repeated itself. Investor interest, instead of being invested in diversified equity fund, had ended up investing disproportionately large amount of AUM in the infrastructure funds. When the market crashed, infrastructure actually stocks crashed more than the market. Investors came to a lot of grief. This situation took some time to recover, but now what I see is that there is a relatively better level of maturity. Why? Because through the years, the regulatory changes, the investor education, the IFA's upgradation in terms of their skill and quality has made them communicate better with the investors. But having said that, there is still one observation that I have. If you see today, we are probably repeating history once again. Where is most of the investor money going today? Small cap. In small cap funds. So are we repeating the mistake of 2000 and 2008 in this year? I feel we are. Because the disproportionately large amount of allocation that we are giving to small cap funds, in my opinion, is a time bomb that is ticking. So this is, I will say, my summary observations of how the markets and the stock and the mutual fund industry has been related. But today, where we stand as part of the mutual fund industry and part of the asset management industry, I think today we are standing at a very beautiful juncture, because two things are happening together. One, mutual funds have become now a household word. Today, I was sharing that earlier, to explain SIP to people, you had to explain it as a recurring deposit scheme. Now, to explain recurring deposit, you have to tell them SIP. Okay, so that is how the transformation has happened. People have now accepted mutual fund as a household word. Second thing that has happened is, equity as an asset class has now become more acceptable all over the country. To understand this power, I think what you need to understand is that look at the shareholder map of India and look at the mutual fund map of India. You will find that the shareholder concentration is largely in the western part of the country. Rest of the country today, even now, is under-penetrated as far as the equity culture is concerned. Now, thanks to television, thanks to the fact that YouTube is giving you so much of education, there is now something which is called democratization of knowledge. This momentum that is picking up, if this momentum actually picks up speed, today the total number of demat accounts in the country is about 12.5 crores, isn't it? This number can very easily double from here. If that equity culture settles into the country, then you will see that there is no FII selling which can dislodge our market. So my thesis of the future of the Indian market is that earlier, when we used to have stock market crashes like the one which we have in '92, the one which we had in 2008, the one which we had in 2000, 2001, you will find that there was something which was common. Two things were common. One, in all these three crashes, '92, 2001 and 2008, the market fell by approximately 55% in all the three crashes. Second thing, the market found a bottom somewhere around where the price earning multiples became 15 times. My thesis is that going forward, you will never get Indian markets at 15 times price earning multiple. Why? Because I am saying that today, if I am an equity owner and I know that I have entered equity early, rest of the country is going to buy equity later. Do you think I will sell my equity cheap? That will not happen. So that is something which I feel is a central thesis that you need to understand. This retail ownership of equity is the biggest thing that is happening in the country. It is happening through mutual funds. Why? Because mutual funds are seen to be managed more professionally. However, like I mentioned, given the fact that there is a bubble that is building up in the small cap, there is a danger there. But otherwise, because people know that rest of the country is going to buy equity, you will never see the market come down to a level where you will be able to buy equities at 15 times price earning multiple. The caveat being, if the inflation in the country on an enduring basis falls to 2% or 3%, in that scenario you might. But otherwise, I do not see you ever being able to buy the markets at a cheap price. So that is one. Second thing that I think is going to happen in the country is the way we have jumped the technology revolution. Today, thanks to the digitalization of so many processes, particularly payments and the transactions, the cost of doing business has become cheaper. Because of this efficiency, you find that people today give this example that in many villages the physical telephone line has never reached, but the villagers directly have mobile phones. So we have not followed the conventional route of telecom revolution. Similarly, in the case of digital revolution, it is quite likely that you might never see a physical bank branch in a village or even in a block, but you will straightaway see a payments bank on the mobile phone of a village folk. So therefore, this efficiency, which is bringing two things, one is cost and the other one the speed with which you are able to execute transaction, this is going to make a phenomenal change to the landscape of the country. And because of that, the GDP growth rate that you will see in India is going to be enduringly strong for a longer period of time. In fact, in that context, let me give you an example. We are all familiar with this COVID application. Thanks to the COVID application, 130 crore Indians could be covered with vaccination. We think Germany is such an advanced nation. They could not replicate the COVID on their own. We had to give it to them. So I'm just saying, because we are dealing with such large numbers, 130, now 135 crore population, we are being more innovative in terms of applying technology than rest of the world. So that is the second thing that is going to be structural change which is going to happen to the country. And the third thing, more particularly I would say with this particular government, the stress on infrastructure, on road, railways, defense and so on and so forth, I would say is probably specific to the NDA government. Because before this, the last time that an aggressive spending was done on the infrastructure was when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. You see that the same thing is getting repeated in terms of this infrastructure. This infrastructure focus is again going to contribute to the development of industry and to the reduction in the cost of running operations. So I think these are the structural changes which are happening to the Indian economy, and these changes will keep your economy very strong for a longer period of time. And the best way to capture this will be equity as an asset class. However, having said that, there will always be space for both equity and debt in your portfolio, because we all know that the classic principle of making or creating wealth is not so much timing but your asset allocation. So there will always be space for debt, and there are innovations which are happening on that space also. So these are my broad, I will say, observations on the evolution of the market, how did it relate with mutual fund, what I think is going to be the future of the market. As far as themes are concerned, I will leave it for some more time. I would ask Kanak to please invite others also to share their views. But in my opinion, at any point of time, market will always have at least 6 or 7 themes. Okay, like in the current situation, we have railway as a theme, we have defense as a theme, we have power as a theme, because I'm quoting someone who's one of the respected analysts who brought out this number that the average per capita consumption of power in India is 800 units, and the average per capita consumption of power in the US is 9,000 units. What is the first reflection of prosperity? You start using more power. So if you go to start using more power, from 800 to 9,000 is a big journey. But from 800 units per capita, if you go to 1,600 units, you can simply calculate how much of that will lead to more power generation, more power transmission, more distribution, more facilities such as metering and others. But the real essence is that just don't look at things from top down. Market being very efficient, some of this opportunity may have already been factored into individual stock prices. So from here, the last point that I want to touch upon, and I will pass it on to you, is that a point which Akhil very rightly made, that we may probably not see the index making too much of gains, but we will see individual stocks and sectors delivering fantastic returns. Why is it that that is going to happen? I think because of 2 reasons. One is you should not look at markets now from top-down approach. You should look at it from the bottom-up approach, because that is where the differentiation will come. Which is why I feel that there is still some scope for employment of active fund managers versus passive investing. I think the next 4 or 5 years still has room for active fund managers who can spot bottom-up opportunities and still end up being outperformers to the index. So that is one of the things. The second thing is that now if you look at India's culture has changed. When I graduated, I was very clear. After graduation, what was my objective? Get a job. Okay. Today, when the youngsters are graduating, what is their last priority? Get a job. Their first priority, do something on their own. So that risk-taking ability, that entrepreneurial spirit, which has got unleashed in the country, is going to give you such a wide variety of businesses, some of which will get listed on the SME exchange, some of it will get listed on the main board. Today, if you see, we could never imagine that something like a Paytm or a Nykaa could be listed. So you have so many innovative businesses that are getting listed. We have not stepped into the next realm, which is artificial intelligence, regenerative AI. Do you think Indians will be far behind in these technologies? No, we will. And somebody will build an enterprise on top of that. And if a Facebook of the past was born in the US, an AI entity, for all you know, might be born in India, because we are, at the end of the day, we are very cerebral. So that is what I feel is the opportunity. Bottom up and active fund management for the next 4 to 5 years is what I think will happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an insightful learning, and I am sure not only this, you are recording with your permission. We can share it with all our mutual fund distributor friends all across India, so that everybody can get benefit out of it. So, any question? Otherwise, we have few more stories to be shared. Short questions.
So I'm saying, right. So I think the question was whether the small caps are expensive. My response to that is that what is happening is that we are looking at past performance of funds and giving more and more AUM to those funds. If you look at the portfolio churn of those funds, the portfolio churn is not very significant. So what is happening is you are giving more money. With that more money, he is buying the same small cap. So it is becoming a vicious cycle that there is little value in the stock, but because of incremental buying, the valuations are going up. So small caps in general may not be expensive, but there are pockets of excessive valuations which are building up in small caps. Second point, which is also related, is that there are limitations to how much you can buy in small caps. See, what happens is people like to make money quickly. So we are today in the premises of Motilal Oswal. So one of the annual studies that they do is called wealth creation. And how do they measure wealth creation? By increasing market cap. Today, if you take the market as a whole, I think small cap as a percentage of the total market cap would be not even 5%. So I'm saying if you have to put 100 rupees and you put it in the proportion of the market cap, so 90 rupees will go to large caps, 5 rupees will go to mid caps, and 5 rupees will go to small cap. I'm saying small caps double. The mid caps grow by 50% and the large cap grow by 10%. What is the return that you are getting next year? 10% of 90% is 9%. 100% of 5% is 5%. So when you measure your wealth next year, your wealth is actually getting created from the large cap. But because we get so obsessed with the near-term return, we decide to put 100 rupees in the small cap. But we lose the sight of the big picture.
We'll take because of time, I shall not take any further request. Ritesh, try to please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.